Mixing with Mike plugin of the week, part two. This is from the Plugin Alliance. It's the Lindell 50 series, the API console. This is the audio examples video. If you stumbled across this video first, then and you want to know more about the features and all of the inner workings of it and all of that sort of stuff, where I just blab on for a while instead of playing audio, that is a separate video called the features video. This is audio examples. I still have to talk because I have to tell you what I'm doing. But other than that, we're going to focus really on listening and what's going on here. So what I want to start off with to begin with is just to do a quick A/B. So what I did was I whipped together a mix here with the console in a hour or so. And put this together, compression, equalization. I didn't use the gate or play around with it. I'm not really a gate person, so I'm not going to feature that in the video if that's what you're looking for. But just to give you an idea of what the overall sonics of it are, I tried to do my best to keep it kind of unity gain when I A/B this out. I'm going to A/B all of the channel strips here. I don't know, some 30 of them or so, 40 of them. And let's see what it sounds like first, then we'll start to dive into some of the individual settings and play around with it a bit. Here we go. Okay, so one of the most obvious things probably you could hear is just like the drums themselves, and kind of working through that. You hear just, if you listen to just the drums and the bass, you could hear how much boxiness I can pull out and how clean and sharp and present I can make the drums. So let's see here here we go. So let's dive in a little bit into this and just kind of work our way through some of the sounds. You know, mostly what I've done here with this in terms of setting up a compression setting, I work with the VCA compressor. I really like to work with that with drums, just starting off, and I'll show you the effect compressor because you're really going to fall in love with that, especially with the bass and the vocals and stuff like that and guitars. But mostly it was about working the way I would work with an API 2500, which is really pretty much what this is emulating. Here we have the setting. Now this is variable, which is really great. So you have the actual exacting control on here in terms of the settings, in terms of being able to dial it in. Which is great. So I always set that to like a release time value that is musical. Eighth note, something along those lines, which is probably what this is at this tempo. 4:1 ratio. right now, most of these are all mono channel strips, so the link doesn't function anywhere here. In this case, I wanted like a sharper type of sound, so I worked with the feed forward to create more presence and take, some. So I put the hard hard knee, so it's more aggressive on the transient, which actually sharpens things up, makes things more focused. And then the feed forward style compression is much more responsive and faster, and that's a big part of creating the openness with the sound. Otherwise, the great part about this is the proportional cue. So as you kind of push into things and working with individual elements like the kick drum, I could really push in very heavily into the fundamental frequency or somewhere right around it, right? In this case, I'm working on a bell curve, right, with this up. And then I can kind of cut away some low mids in there, add a little, presence for the attack, and more or less leave everything else alone. And here, what I did was I drove up the input gain with the unity feature. So let's just do a little play around here a little bit. Let's see if I did that. There we go. There. That swallows it up a little too much, doesn't it? So I'm going to kind of set it there. So a good thing I listened to that. There's also the THD. Right, so that's just adding in a bit of the natural harmonic distortion that exists from the 2520 op amp. I think there's also a transformer that's built into that circuit as well at the input stage and on the individual modules. So that's the basics there. Let's just kind of go through quickly, just A-Bing in and out the VCA circuit. So now that I listen to this, I want to change up all of my settings here. So I went to a feedback, which warms up the kick a little bit, and went to a soft attack just to kind of keep some of the edge off of it. But that probably messes up everything else that I did. Let's move on to the snare drum. I'm not going to adjust too much here because I also have a snare bottom mic. Now let's move on over to the bass here for a second. So I like that better with the kick drum here. I wanted to talk a little bit or show you here the FET circuit. So and the ceiling control. The ceiling control, as I said before in the features video, what it does is it lowers the threshold as you increase the ceiling, and then it increases the output gain. So as you lower the threshold, you're going to get more gain reduction, and it's applying makeup gain in direct opposition to that. You have a variety of release times. The attack time is fixed. It's very fast. But you do have two options for ratio. One is a limiter mode, 20:1, and a compressor mode, 2:1. And it just has a great vibe to it. Let's just play around with this a little bit just so I can show you. Let me skip to where the... And the different buttons here will you just figure out what gives you the best vibe or best breathing movement with it, with what you feed into it, and just really kind of glues everything together in a really great way. I think I'm driving this a bit too much, a little too much gain reduction. I'll actually have to make up the gain over here, I guess, is what I have to do. Get a nice growl out of it, which is something that FET compressors are really great at. Just kind of give it like a little bit of an edge. FET circuits usually used to kind of an inexpensive way of giving you a little bit of a tube characteristic. So it has like a warm thing, but it has a bit more edge to it than a tube circuit does. So that ended up being, I thought was like a really good option for this, especially blended in with the guitars and the other instruments. So let's move on a little bit to the guitars, and the guitars here. Let's see. All right, there we go. All right, so with the guitars, this to me is like just prime territory for working with the 560 circuit. And with this, I use the FET circuit too, just given the nature of it. With this, what I find with guitars or with different elements, rhythm section elements, it also works great with vocals, the FET circuit. With something that has a lot more sustain on it, it will actually help to give a glue to it in a way that a VCA compressor is not quite as good at. VCAs are really good at percussive material or rhythm instruments that have a more pronounced pace or rhythm, where there's not a lot of sustain in them. And anything that has a lot of sustain, you want something that will add like a glue or sort of focus the sound in. And that's where that option between the VCA and the FET is just so powerful. All right, so let's just do a little fiddling around here with this, just to kind of give you an idea of how the API 560 here sounds different from the 550 or the way that you deal with it for guitars. Right, just has a great energy to it. It also allows you to really pull out that 8K range, which often ends up being kind of has a lot of annoying characteristics in a guitar that end up taking a lot of acoustic energy that you need for other things like the vocals and the cymbals and stuff like that. So it allows you to kind of warm that up. Here I use the high pass filter circuit there. I didn't drive this. Let's have a listen to that, although I did push up the harmonic distortion. Let's see what that sounds like. I think I'm going to leave it like that. Let's see if I drive the input stage here. So I kind of like driving that a little bit. here, and let's just move over to the FET circuit here. Let's see what happens if I drive this a little bit more. Now have it in limiter mode. So let's just see what the differences are between that and working in compression mode. So you can hear with the faster release how I can get more movement, get it to breathe a little bit more. I think I liked more or less where I was here, but with a faster release. All right, and let's hear what that sounds like here in the track. It's just like got this, kind of like sweet, powerful, punchy sound that never just seems to choke anything. That's just really a signature vibe of the API console. Here we have the guitar that matches up against it on the right-hand side. Also have a 20-to-1 mode here. I also did the same thing here with the THD, so let me see if I drive this and I get the same results as what I get on the left side. All right, adds a little bit more edge and presence. Okay, all right, so we have that. Let's move on to some vocals. There's loads of guitars in this, and I want to make sure that I do cover vocals with this. So let's have a look of what this sounds like with the vocals, and I'll show you a couple different strategies for some things that you can use in terms of the compression and how some of the different settings work here. So let me kind of make a copy of where it was at. Let's listen to a little bit of the vocal without any processing. Let's see. It usually helps if I unmute everything. There we go.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis. At least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, so see my tree, you're making me itch. So sentimental, so suicide, what a way to exist.
Okay, so what I did here was just try to open up the sound a bit. And yes, it's pretty heavily compressed. That's purposeful. I wanted to kind of, sit in and kind of a very defined place in the mix because there's a lot of guitars and different things that are sort of floating around it. So I drove the ceiling up here. It's interesting because you get more gain reduction with the 2-to-1 mode. It could be, and I'm not sure about this, but typically, especially when you get to limiters and compressors that go back to the 60s and 70s, often what you'll get when you have ratio options with them, and like the 1176 is like this as well. Another FET circuit compressor, obviously, is that when you go lower in ratio, it's actually a softer knee, and then when you go higher in ratio, it becomes a harder knee. And so the amount of gain reduction often is more with the lighter ratio, which doesn't make sense when you think about it, but that's really the reason for getting more or less gain reduction. So it's sort of like, it's almost like moving the threshold up higher and giving it a harder knee, and with the lower threshold or lower ratio, lowering the threshold, or sort of making it more gradual the way that it comes in, but you get more gain reduction because more signal starts to compress sooner, right, than what you do with the hard knee. And then I wanted a fast release to kind of make it reactive. So let's have a listen here.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis, at least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, so see my tree, you're making me itch. So sentimental, so suicide, what a way to exist.
Now, one thing that's actually quite cool here, let's say that I wanted to change up and go to the 560 here to work with the EQ. So I can go in and make some adjustments here, and then I can go back to my 550B, and I still have all my settings here. To some degree, if you use the 5, because there is some correlation between settings between the 550A and the 550B, if you switch back and forth, it'll preserve the settings that you do in one and pile them onto the other as much as it can, right? In the same way that it did with on the 80 series, where you had the 1084, or I'm sorry, yeah, the 84 versus the 1073. Okay. So let's go over here and let's work with this a little bit.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis, at least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, so see my tree, you're making me itch. So sentimental, so suicide, what a way to exist. It's automatic, you're not on call. It's automatic, you're not there. It's automatic, you're not on call. It's automatic, you're not there.
So let's say I work with this just for the sake of extending the example. Let's say I work with this here, and then I'll go back and I'll switch this to the VCA circuit. Now with the VCA circuit, I could actually do something completely different. Maybe what I do is go to like a low threshold. Let me work with the light ratio, fast attack, fast release time. Let's see.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis, at least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, so see my tree, you're making me itch. So sentimental, so suicide, what a way to exist.
So this will give a different characteristic sound here. So now I'm trying to do like a kind of getting the threshold down there, so it's more really responding and kind of making the vocal kind of pump and breathe pretty aggressively.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis, at least I'm an organ donor.
See where I was.
It's automatic, so see my tree, you're making me itch. So sentimental, so suicide, what a way to exist.
All right, so I used a little high-pass filter here. Let's see if I drive the circuit here a little bit.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite or praying mantis, at least I'm an organ donor.
Okay, let's see what this sounds like in the track.
Sitting Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite, or praying mantis. At least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, it's in my tree. You're making me itch. Sentimental, suicide. Wide awake to exist.
Okay, I know. This is a terrible sibilance problem. We'll deal with that later. Here, to get the basic idea, though, of how it works, actually, if I went back to the FET circuit, I could actually try the DS circuit and see what that sounds like, although I think this is maybe a little bit too woofy here sonically. Let's see what we get with the DS circuit in.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite, or praying mantis. At least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, it's just in my tree. You're making me itch.
Just kind of takes away a little bit too much here. We'll get it probably better off with another compressor in that circuit. But overall, just to get the basic idea of what the capabilities are and what the flexibility is. Also just amazing just to have the ability to just try a couple different options here, and even beyond just the A/B, being able to just compare the two different compressors and get your different settings and figure out just what works best. All right, let's dive into one or two other things here. Let's see what we got.
Sitting on the ground, facing the static, and I look for a way to roll over. Murder by satellite, or praying mantis. At least I'm an organ donor. It's automatic, it's just in my tree. You're making me itch. Sentimental, suicide. Wide awake to exist. It's automatic, you're not on call. It's automatic, you're not there. It's automatic, you're not on call. It's automatic, you're not there.
Here, let's work up to this solo section here for a second and take a look at what I have there with the guitar solo. Now, a classic thing here, choice between this, the 558, the great part being is that it has the low pass filter, and let's just try the 560, which probably would have been another second option here for this. Let's just kind of work here. I'll kind of take, let me see if I take a little bit of that grittiness up at top, but leave some of the air up there as like a starter. So what I'm going to do here is just pull a little bit of this in. Let me go to the unity thing here and see what happens if I drive a little bit of harmonic distortion into it. All right, that adds a little bit more focus. Now let's work on the FET section over here, and let's just see. We'll do a comparison here. Let's go over to this. Using that limiter circuit there to sort of drive it a little bit. It doesn't look like a lot of gain reduction, but it does have a different characteristic sound. The other way, instead of the quick release here, this just helps to bring out a little bit more of the detail of the individual notes. Otherwise, it could go the opposite direction and sort of smooth it all out. See which one sounds better inside the track. Of course, this is right behind. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. All right, great. I think what I did over here, and this has been kind of following me along as I raise this up, and the kick drum is way too loud. Great for the demo. All right, here we So one quick thing, I mean, I just love the way that sounds. It's almost not even worth trying the VCA, but here, let's just have a quick go at it. Maybe I'll try something that might be like a similar kind of technique here with the release. Here, let's kind of go to like a makeup gain. There we go. Let's hear the difference between that and the FET. Really hear how the FET circuit really brings out a bit more body and energy out of the, tonal character out of the guitar. Let's switch in the track. Anyway, just to kind of give you some basic ideas of what this sounds like with different instruments. I'm still playing around with this, but I just really love it. And I'm kind of exaggerating some things, and I totally messed up all of my settings there with the kick and the snare and stuff like that. But the basic idea of it here is you can really see the flexibility, the ability to switch out the different circuits, especially the VCA and the FET circuit. That's just like an amazing option. I don't think anybody has that. And then having all 3 API EQs available to you is really great. The added saturation circuit options, and the TMT technology. It's just it's a no-brainer. I'm really really blown away by this one, and hence the review of it, because I don't like to review plugins that I don't like. Otherwise, it's hard to put the passion into it. So that's why it's plugin of the week. From the Plugin Alliance, Lindell 50 series. This is the audio examples video. If you want to get into more of the details of the individual settings, watch the features video, and you'll pick it up all there.